1914, when Europe was plunging into the Great War, an anthropologist, armed only with a camera, discovered a people who had never either seen or even heard of a white man. They used some tools beaten out of raw copper, so he called them the Copper Eskimos. Except for that, it was the Stone Age. And they obligingly demonstrated how it's quite possible to live happily in the Stone Age.
We Inuit are deeply fascinated by Qallunaat and their ways. The word Qallunaat is used universally by Inuit to describe white people. But it doesn't refer so much to skin color as a state of mind. A culture that has reached all corners of the whole planet, including the Inuit homeland. Qallunaat ought to be some subject of study by other cultures, by somebody who's not of them. And when I thought about that, immediately came to mind the academics, people who work at universities, anthropologists, who've done that, studying Inuit ways. And one day it just sort of clicked, why don't we examine them? I think it's about time to reverse those tables. Inuit, enough time has lapsed for Inuit to have, to present their own knowledge of Qallunaat.
I remember my parents telling me that that long time ago, people who were able to see the future were predicting that another group of people would be arriving, that they would be what they would call uimatuyuk, which roughly translates to people who jump to conclusions or don't have any patience and always want to do things right now, and that they would be very impatient, and that it was going to be very difficult to resist them, because even if you were able to drive them away, that they will come back in greater numbers. And their numbers were described in terms like they are as many as the sands on the shores. As many as the mosquitoes in the summer, and that they would have deadly weapons.
Information concerning RCMP G Division detachment areas, Eastern Arctic subdivisions. File number T517-19, required in triplicate. Patrols. Give places, names, purpose, frequency, site of patrol cabins, patrol equipment caches, average yearly mileage.
Local patrols, when circumstances warrant same, by motor vehicle, skidoo, and canoe, to enforce statutes and territorial ordinances.
Settlements. Describe briefly. Locations, distance away from detachment, populations, number of whites, Métis, Indians, Eskimo.
No settlements in area.
Duties. Describe law enforcement duties. Assistance to other government departments.
Frobisher Bay, Baffin Island, Subdivision Headquarters. It's grim.
You know, they would come into town, especially government and policemen. When they arrived in the communities, you know, they sort of let it be known that they're the new sheriff in town, and they always expected to have their way.
How did they end up owning not just their pieces of property, but owning all the land? And this was very hard for even an educated Inuk like me to try to delve into and get the reasoning behind how we woke up one morning and we're tenants on somebody else's property. Inuit enjoy poking fun at each other, and any Qallunaat who came to live among the Inuit became fair game too. Pilupusi Kunilusi is renowned for his impression of a typical Qallunaat government official.
Okay. What's your name?
Afrikaan my home at my name.
Oh. Well, what's your name?
Don't try to figure out what Pilupusi is saying. It might not make sense in any of Canada's official languages.
When was la pro wine the das say? Me, inolegi. What's wrong with baba? All right, fast to my. Oh, what's your name?
Mami Gaya. Mami Gaya.
Mama Gaya. Oh, hello, Mama Gaya. Okay. Well, the best let's chess right now. Tall, why? Whoa. I want to start tall, say, prank try. But to the day, no good, well, size. Oh, Malaticala. Papa la sika sala valenai. Lamana la susa kata prumo. Oh, look ya kana. Basakala sakata tabaka tamana lat wala sakala ba. Malika te kali tabanaka to tabana. La kalama te sakalama kali sakata pala ba. I mean, it's Qallunaat people. When did that tell me it's Kai? I'm a tater. Look it up, Pukalabay. Oh, shake it. What is it? Yeah, good. Too much money. Yeah, too much money. Right. Good. What can I show? Big calabalaba. Big catty calabo. But Maximako.
This is John. This is Mary. All right? This is John. This. Of course, in the government community school, my work is based on first teaching English. But even this is no guarantee they will understand us any better. Our ways of thinking are not always theirs, for our logic often escapes them.
Dick, Jane said, jump, father, jump, father, jump. Come and see father jump and play. Oh, oh, father is funny.
Well, Dick and Jane was a very sterile, very antiseptic. It was almost a fantasy land. We didn't know trees. We didn't know animals as pets. Our parents had names. And Dick and Jane, if it was an accurate description of how Qallunaat lived, most of us couldn't relate to it from the book. And their language was, well, elementary. And so we didn't know the Qallunaat, the few Qallunaat we knew to be speaking like that. Look, look, see Dick run. Oh, Jane, oh, Sally. We didn't observe Qallunaat speaking like that, but we were taught in the books that the language is spoken like that, but we simply couldn't relate to how they lived.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. What do you do all morning?
What did I do all morning? I helped prepare some documents for review of legislation for the government of Nunavut.
What do you do with those markers?
Those markers are often used to black out documentation before we release it to the public.
Oh.
Yeah.
How come?
How come? Because sometimes there's information that's private that the public is not allowed to see, that's involved with decisions that are made by the government.
Oh, how come?
That goes a long way back to the nature of if you get a lawyer to help you out, he is your friend, and because he or she is your friend, they're allowed to keep quiet. Like if you go to your teacher to tell your teacher a secret, your teacher is, if you tell your teacher, I'm going to tell you a secret, you expect your teacher to keep a secret, right?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See ya.
Telling the truth, when you're talking, it's very important that you tell the truth. And in our oral history, something you say carries more weight than anything you put on paper. Because if you write something, it can have all kinds of meanings. But if you actually speak it, it's supposed to come from the heart, from you as a person. So what you say in our tradition, in our culture, is very, very important.
I don't know if you guys have seen this or heard about it. It's called The Book of Wisdom for Eskimo. And I just want to share some of the things in there. It was published in 1947 that the government sent out to the Inuit to educate them. Anyways, I just want to share some of the things that I found in there. They covered a lot of topics, and anyways, the first one I got a kick out of, it's called Clean Air. When we breathe, we take air into our bodies and let it out again. The more we work, the more we want air. If we cannot breathe, we die for want of air. I like this picture. RCM police, the Eskimos' friend.
When you're so bloody.
And then a clean body. Our skin is full of very small holes. what you see without special glasses. We sweat through these holes. When we sweat, we get rid of poison. Our skin breathes through the small holes. When our skin is dirty, the holes are full. And the poison cannot get out. Here's my favorite one. Crying a new baby. A new baby cannot talk, so it cries. And it goes on like a baby cries when it is hungry, a baby cries when it is thirsty, but a new baby cannot talk, so it cries. So, if ever you want to look at it, it's called The Book of Wisdom for Eskimo.
Hey,
it's real.
A new Canadian citizen is registered in the Mounties office. Born on the 6th of June, 1958, at Padloping Island, in the Northwest Territories of Canada. Son of Joe Annecy, hunter and trapper. Now that Joe Annecy has a son, surely he must be Angutimaric, a man among men.
We knew that white people were not stupid, that they were very knowledgeable. And in many ways, we held them in awe. Gee, how can these people know so much? How can they have so much? You know, we felt very small, you know, compared to them.
Their food was what the word delicious was invented for. All their women were beautiful, and even their garbage was good. So my image of Qallunaat was that they are somehow superior because of these things. I was part of the first generation of Inuit to be sent down south for academic education. Being immersed in their world gave me a unique opportunity to observe them at close quarters. When I was among the Qallunaat first, I was amazed at how property almost had a sacred air about it. And I perceived later that they work so hard as individuals to accumulate what they get in life, that they're quite vigilant about any perceived violation of the property that they have. And in my first year among the Qallunaat, we had a family that was that were quite grouchy and grumpy. People, they didn't get along with people. and they acted like anybody passing by was about to encroach upon their property, and would pick arguments and fights over trifles. For example, if you put 1 foot on their property, you would probably be subject to a tirade of some sort about violating or trespassing.
I see boulders around town being, I equate in the same. Boulders around town, I call it misuse of nature. No, I don't think boulders were meant to be used in an aggressive manner, because they're not there to be aesthetic or have any other use than you shall not cross this area. So that's why I call it misuse.
Property has a lot to do with, I think, keeping up with the Joneses, which is a facet of Qallunaat life. You're trying to get ahead. You're not merely trying to keep up with the Joneses. If you can surpass the Joneses, that's what you're trying to do. If other people around you are in need, are hungry or homeless, that's their problem, not yours. It's a grave offense at a Qallunaat dinner table to either have human releases like a burp or a fart, grave offenses. Qallunaat have these weird habits of saying good morning or hello or how are you. In fact, when a conversation starts among two Qallunaat, there seems to be what to me looks like a very superficial inquiry about how the other person is. Yeah, having company is related to being invited to a particular house for a particular activity. Neighbors just can't just walk in to a having company event. And then when the whole activity is over and people start packing to go out, there is an amazing ritual. I'm not sure if it's either ritual or just habit, but people who are on the way out to the door have all manner of things to say, and with the host and hostess, they talk forever at the door about nothing in particular with the door open for a long, long time. I was surprised at how many people make what could be called a profession of dating. In Inuit culture, people like that who date all the time without ever really latching on to one partner as a result of the dating process would be called uinitsuito in the case of a woman who can never find a husband, or a nulianitsuito in the case of a man who can never find a wife.
When I was a younger teenager, I had a chance to go to Ottawa, and I stayed at this family's place, and this family was an older couple, and I've never ever forgotten that smell. And this older couple had a lot of their things were like antiques, and they were like really well preserved, but it sort of had this museum smell. Like I don't know if you guys have ever noticed going into a museum and there's this kind of it's not a strong moldy smell, but it's close to that. And then there always seems to be that smell of detergent. Like there's always whether it's underarm stuff or shampoo stuff, and like it's a strange combination of that moldy and detergent smell combined into one that it's so weird for me to say this to you. I've never actually gone and smelled you, but that's what I've noticed about like standing next to Qallunaat, so I don't know.
Temelen yung takakyo, sunak ko tami tigo may akawit, sunalakiw daw mga tukisistikan niya ko na pitigot.
Ila tiang una, ila unika kau gama ato kataraw ko kau yisaw tiulo ni kanok Qallunaat ngutiging mga kau yisaw timuna. Ila nguna tayo yung Qallunaat 2000, ikikukune pekok diyoro. At aswila tabaw na, naiman na surapok, Qallunaat ngunang mit, Qallunaat kang nga aw nga, nawag pita kang imat. Wangila! Tabago Qallunaat. Oy! Wangila! Nipiso!
Camping in Jasper, and we pulled up in the car and we bought a stall, and it was stall number 23 or whatever it was, and we used the asphalt road to drive up to our asphalt camping spot with a neatly arranged fireplace. With the wood, we couldn't touch it unless we bought them first, and we couldn't burn it unless we bought the license first. And we laid down our tent, and it was basically a parking lot with trees. It was like a, I don't want to, it kind of like an IKEA camping ground. It's like exactly one tree and one bush and maybe one rock. Exactly every stall had one tree, one bush, and one rock.
And now one of the most important of all early films, Conquest of the North Pole. Experts from all over the world have gathered to discuss a way for getting to the North Pole. Some of the explorers are trying to reach the pole by automobile or tank or what have you. Finally, the great apparatus lands at the pole. The high landing speed brings trouble.
In order to enjoy nature, they have to go to the ends of the earth where there's nobody else, because they're used to, maybe they're sick of people, maybe they're sick of being tight spaces. So you always see them go, so what are you doing this weekend? Well, actually, I'm going to punch out, and I think I'm going to go to Everest this weekend, go climb it, and come back for Monday.
Qallunaat Studies Institute Field Officer Training Division presents Recipe for Disaster. Meet Neville Cudlew and John Michael Law, two explorers with absolutely no practical Arctic experience and a load of top-of-the-line manufactured gear. Often foregoing local knowledge, explorers rely on their many hours spent in the library researching. Neville Cudlew and John Michael Nahr are your perfect examples of typical Arctic explorers, accidents waiting to happen. As field officers, it is your duty to make sure these men survive to make their second trip. Staying at a reasonable distance, you are less likely to jeopardize their adventure, and most importantly, less likely to jeopardize your health. Everyone knows a little suffering leads to a great adventure. But these explorers take suffering to the next level. Although we can't be certain what occurs inside of their tents, you must remain vigilant and be ready to step in at all times in case of Qallunaat-related accidents. Rest assured, if your exploration isn't successful the first time, they'll be back to try again. Qallunaat Studies Institute Field Officer Training Division, Recipe for Disaster.
Qallunaat explorers, traders, and anthropologists have acquired great reputations by writing about their adventures in the frozen north. The general public, as if incapable of knowing any better, lap up such writings as truth.
Ilinea lauk tem nit au la lauk tem nit tak kuning ko herne kit kanu lo mga ta kanok at to mga ta halo ngunda takbut ta ko ila kejuit kanu mga pa kanu mga te inung nit ko ya atik ilangit ujo ko lauk ta salutations anna salutations ayong na lo ilinea na lo ko tan halo atok ta taklo na lo nang itok amato ilangit greetings, latamati. Greetings. Ilangit daw kiheni takenya kauyumit. Kanupit hello latuin nang ayok mata ilangili aperitang mata. Okaktaklutik. Top of the morning. Ilangit adjiging ito may atok daw tang mata. Maningak namikiak ilinyaw na lawamat daw sakwa ilakeni luptumit. What's up? Takuning atok daw tang mata. Adjiging matik ilangit aperemeak okaktameak lutik How's it going? How's it going?
Unikari kanya nelo may magusit jarep. Jarep.
Dan nakatiman yung tisa ko luwi si magaro waktu nga dek kuninga nuno buka ba mangita Qallunaat isu hak nginni kino yung pita kaya huluwid tabung nga takoyak tonneata imakata magkwa Qallunaat ilisaw na katigit kanong inutsyaw ng mga ata yun under the tune ng iludo inuso ko tangin ning imaka sakwi balegi harang mata inusik ta adjingin pinisunik sa bari
okak ihumala kamari makon umiyak na aulak ta kataw lugit amataw kaming niglu kamukha kamiglu kaya ng niglu amataw kolinik angotinik aulak ta taw kumlugit ta kolya malotik aulak tulo mga ta kawya nilumalo ta kayo akian nga kamayumi ang kamabita
ay matcha
okay.
Qallunaat have always had a hard time with Inuit names. The lack of standardized family names among Inuit must have bent their tidy squares' thought processes out of whack. One idea they came up with was to give us all numbers.
Mat na kak titaw do ama na te mo blum ito halawat tigo nutararium unika law to Qallunaat aterlulang mata tabba nalunay ko tatariya kaligabu aterlulang mata kawi matana tigo kitu angata tabba kaw hanega Qallunaat nalunay ko tatarine amihula matanaw amihula slukte hilayo amilukta amma amihula slukte tamang milukta ataw hang minahaw ti mitunin na ayo katigo at iging itunin nahaw ti nituniya kang nakatigo tabba Amerika ni tabba inuk titut nahaw ti nituniya kalwa tigo takilwa na man tabba mani Amerika ni nahayaw tigo inuktut kulinit kuler lugo kulik kanerok ni kulik kaner lugo lo tema 1 million mutikihana kiha Amerika ni 300 million mutikit tak mata tema Qallunaat o kakaktugo 300 million tabba Canada mi tao 30 million nguk mata tabba o kang nelak tugo Canada mi Q1 mi pikar vekarluti Q1000 tamani Amerika ni Q2000 amamani tagew akyani Q4000 Q5000 Q6000 tabba nalunay ko tayo atok tang negawo tayo maublume Qallunaat kagat tabba ni king hevud lakpangon na nahaw titang na tabba ni luwa mata matnalavo. Arise. Now, you have the privilege of being the first Qallunaat to receive Q numbers that from now on will identify you to us, Inuit. These numbers will now allow you to buy carvings and artwork.
Thank you.
What Nagauli? Do you understand? 1579. Nice to meet you. 26834. Have a good day. 75346.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mamena tu kasing inakit abang makakapag.
I'm gonna get my shoe number.
Mamena tu kasing inakit abang makakapag.
Nicknames used to be given out to every possible Qallunaat. There was a Qallingasik, which means drooping pants. There was a Qallunaat called Nungak, which means one who is forever cold. There was another one called Patinyaki, which means small buttocked one, or maybe in today's lingo, weenie buns.
Coberto te valita, usami camera.
Pigi.
Over in the eastern Arctic, contact between the Eskimo and the white man has been limited. The Eskimo still lives as a hunter and trapper, though he uses some of the white man's tools and weapons. But with new developments like the Dew Line airlift, these Eskimos are faced with disturbing changes. Nowhere in the north is this more apparent than at Frobisher Bay. Here on the southern tip of Baffin Island, like other once remote isolated points, the increased tempo of development brought the white man in large numbers with incredible machines and shattered the calm of the silent north. In the areas affected by these new developments, the Eskimo is faced with a choice. He can work with the men from the south and adapt to the new conditions, or continue as of old to hunt and trap for his livelihood. Those like Zebedee, who have made the change, enjoy it. They provide a source of inexpensive local labor, quick to pick up imitative skills. Their unfailing good humor, their tolerance, their ready acceptance of strange customs has enabled them to get along well with their new employers. Their honesty is legend. Surrounded by a wealth of goods, it rarely occurs to them to take anything, not even the smallest pin, that is not rightfully theirs. Unfortunately, imitative skills take them only so far. To make real progress in their new jobs, they should be able to speak, read, and write English. Without this, communications and instructions are difficult, and technical manuals remain a closed book to them.
The most difficult part is to find ways to help the Eskimo change his personality, to find a balance between the old and the new. The simpler part lies in what we can do for the Eskimo, and we're starting on that right away. On that plain overlooking the sea, we're going to build a new community. Let me show you.
In those days, the government governed without asking what Inuit wanted or what Inuit needed. I have since in other years perceived that there was a great debate amongst government officials about what are we going to do with the Eskimos. And one of the great decisions made was, well, we can educate them and try to give them the tools of formal education in order for them to be functional in a modern world. And I was part of the first generation of Inuit upon which those principles were practiced. And in a way, I'm either the victim or the beneficiary, and very often both, because learning these things, Inuit learning these things, as I did, came at a great cost to my own identity as an Inuk.
Who's going to start? You're going to start.
Yeah.
Tell your first story, whatever your first story is, and I'll correct it later. Okay, fine. First story.
Yeah. Ili sa yingay. Agago niya misukalaw ni takuting inan.
Mana itukuluran no.
Ila ibili wangali inatuinyo yung man.
You're in the prime of your life.
Well, I have several reminiscences to share with you.
Yes.
You're my second Qallunaat teacher ever.
Yes, the first one had a nervous breakdown. Go on ahead.
and you were one of the people that set me on the trajectory to formal education. And for that, I have many things to thank you for. But I'm not here to give you a catalog of those. I just wanted to share some early memories of formal education with you as a teacher.
Yes.
The consequences of formal education upon us as children was quite dramatic in that Now we had to stay cooped up in a one-room classroom from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, including in the beautiful spring season. Of course, in those days, the hunting urge was still very strong amongst the boys. And I remember one time I wrote a note to you, and I gave it to one of my younger brothers. And I said, "Dear Elisei, I will be hunting ptarmigan today, so I won't be going to school." And I think I signed my name. And another boy and I took off, walked across the Puwangnitok River, and we were just reaching the other side of the river when up runs Elisei, quite assertive. Aggressive and assertive.
Yeah.
Very clear, making it very clear to us that we are to go back to school. And my buddy and I were trying to make it just as clear that we're not going back to school. But of course, you are the Qallunaat teacher, you're the boss, and you prevail. But you prevail at the cost of picking me up like a sack of flour and on your shoulder.
Yes.
And grabbing the other guy by the wrist and dragging him physically back 2 miles.
Yes.
And we had quite a fight.
Yes.
You trying to get me inside the schoolhouse without any success?
Yes, yes.
Because I was fighting actually for my life.
Yes.
When I look at pictures of myself of that time, I look at an Eskimo man in the making.
Yes.
I look at a young boy who's just skimming through boyhood to be a man among men in the Eskimo style. That trajectory of seeing myself to be a man among men being broadsided by civilization.
Yeah.
What's the best thing that's happened as a result of the Qallunaat coming up here?